Hey everyone, it's Jen B, and welcome to my studio. In today's video, I'm going to be making a stacker cuff using this gorgeous piece of Turquoise Mountain turquoise. So if you'd like to see how I do that, just keep watching and let's get to work. All right, so I had started today with a different turquoise in mind for this cuff. I was going to use this gorgeous piece of Golden Hills, but once I started making it and as I was trying to decide how I wanted to embellish the setting, I felt like this stone needed a little bit more special treatment than a simple stacker cuff. So I am putting that stone away for another day, and I'm going to be using this gorgeous stone that I got from the Turquoise Museum here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is a stunning piece of turquoise mountain, and I thought as I changed directions for this cuff that I would use this little guy. I've already made the cuff and the setting. Well, I've started to make the setting. I will insert a clip right here of me creating the cuff, and then we will move on. Okay, so for this cuff, I am going to be using Crazy 8 wire. This is an 8 gauge half round wire. I am not 100% sure what the difference between Crazy 8 and regular 8 gauge half round wire is. I'll try to remember to look that up and put it in the description. But this particular wire is Crazy 8. This is one of my favorite wires for making ring shanks from. So I'm going to try it out for the stacker cuff and see how I like that. The first thing I'm going to do is round the ends so that they are comfortable to wear. I have already filed the ends flat, and so okay, the ends are looking pretty nice. I'm happy with that. I am going to take this over to the jewel tool and do a little bit of smoothing out to get some of the scratches out of the wire before I form it, and then we'll start working on. Okay, over at the jewel tool, I'm going to use one of these scrubby attachments. It will give a nice satin finish to this, and yeah, I am going to be turning on a vacuum, so I'll probably insert a little bit of music. Okay, this is what we've got after using the jewel tool to kind of smooth out the wire a little bit. The curves look very nice. So now I'm going to take this wire over to my other work table, and we're going to use a tool to bend this and create a cuff shape. Okay, so here we are over at my other work table. Excuse all the mess in the background. Still trying to organize and figure out what is the best system in this very tiny space. But anyway, this is a bracelet bending tool, and I'm going to be using this to help create the curve of the cuff. I've got it set up in a vise, and the way that this works is you unscrew these little nuts. You put your wire in there. I'll demonstrate it. I have not used this very much, so yeah, we'll try it out together. Okay, so I'm gonna lift this up and put my wire underneath. I'm really not sure exactly where you're supposed to put the wire, but you screw it down, and then you just, I'm trying to do this so that I'm not blocking the camera, but you just use your thumbs to push up and over, and it creates that curve. And you can see there we've got a start. Okay, and push that up and over. And I think I do have to take this off to kind of, there we go, slide it out. And you can see here that we have started to get a curve of a cuff bracelet. I'm going to refine the shape using a mandrel, but I've got the initial shape. Okay, so I tightened up, I don't know if you can see, I tightened up that curve a little bit. And now I am liking the way that that sits on my wrist a little bit better. All right, before I work on the embellishment for this, I want to solder this bezel to the back plate. So I'm just going to clean the back plate with a sanding sponge. I'm just getting any grime, oxidation. Okay, I'm over at my soldering area and just preparing my solder. Put a couple chips of solder in the soldering, or in the flux bowl. It's not an extremely heavy bezel. So yeah, I think those 4 pieces will be enough. Don my safety goggles, always important. I'm going to go ahead and warm up the metal, get flux. This is the back. I'm just fluxing the back to make sure that it's protected from fire stain. Get flux on the front. There we go. And get my little bezel here. And I'll get that added. And make sure there's enough space all the way around. Just adding a little bit of flux. And I take my flux bowl, spray just a little bit of flux in there. I'm going to place my solder chips. Sorry if I'm off camera. I think I was off camera, wasn't I? Very shaky today. I'm going to have to readjust those pieces of solder. Once they're a little bit sticky. I'll use my pick and rearrange those. Now let's see if we can get those pushed up against the bezel wall. Okay. All right, I've got all of my solder chips placed, and I'm just gonna go around. Still not happy. Solder chip right in there. Now I'm happy. Okay. focusing my flame underneath and on top every once in a while. I don't want the solder to go up on the sides of the bezel. Okay, we are just about there. You can see the solder flowing all the way around. Looks beautiful. Looking pretty good. That darker line that's all the way around, that is the solder. So I'm going to throw this in the pickle and then really get a good look and make sure the solder flowed. But on first inspection, we are good. All right, just pulled this out of the pickle and we have a gorgeous solder seam all the way around. It's looking really good. I'm going to work on creating an embellishment. I think I'm going to go with this tiny beaded wire. I'm going to see how it looks with the setting, and then I'll decide what I want to do. Okay. Yeah, you know, I don't think it needs much bigger than that. So I'm going to start to create. This is very soft wire. I've already annealed it another time. So we're just going to start to shape it. And I'm going to put a mark right where I'm going to cut it. This is so tiny. This bead wire is itty bitty. All right. And if I solder it there, let's see if that fits. I may be able to take off one more bead. Yep, I think I'll take off one more bead. And then that should be perfect to fit down over this. Yeah, I think that'll be perfect. Okay, I'm over at the soldering area again. And this beaded wire is so tiny. I don't want a real big hot flame for this. Come in and start to spray it. A little bit of flux. I'm going to do a technique called pick soldering, where I'm going to pick up my piece of solder with my pick. Maybe. This is a very tiny piece of solder. There we go. I just cleaned my pick too. All right, and then I'm just going to drop that piece of solder right on the join. And that's getting hot, almost melted. Okay, I believe the solder flowed. My head wasn't in the way, so it's kind of bending down looking at that. Okay, I don't know if you can see the join. Maybe it is right there. My camera doesn't want to focus, but it is joined. You almost can't see it. If I didn't know it was there, I may not be able to see it. Okay, what I'm going to do is sand this real quick so that it gets the oxidation and flux off, and then we'll get this soldered to the setting. Okay, now that this is soldered together, I'm going to sand the bottom a little bit so that there are some flat spots on the bottom of the beads so that they are in contact a little bit more with the back plate than they would be if they were completely round. This is a sanding tool with nanotape and on an acrylic block. This idea came from Tanya Davidson in one of her free classes. I'll leave a link below to her website and her classes. She has some great free information on her site. So I am just going to sand the bottom a little bit. Doesn't need much because this is very thin wire. Yeah, that looks really good. Let me bring this up to the camera and see if you can see that. Okay, hopefully you can see that there are some flat spots on the beaded wire rather than it being round on the back. They are flat, and that's going to create more contact on the back plate. So this should fit right down around the bezel. Oh my goodness, look how perfect that is. That's going to be real adorable. Okay, I'm going to head over to the soldering area and we're going to get this soldered down, and I'm going to try a technique I've never tried before called stick soldering. That's what it is, stick soldering. So let's go try that out. Okay, I am over at the soldering area and I'm going to try a technique called stick soldering. I've got some wire solder and some cross-locking tweezers. And the idea of stick soldering is when the metal is up to the temperature where it will flow, you just touch the wire solder to the area that it needs to flow and it flows. I don't know. I've never done it. I am using hard solder, which I didn't want to use. I wanted to use medium, but I don't have any wire solder in medium right now. So I'm hoping I can get this done with hard solder. We shall see. I know that there are jewelers out there who use nothing but hard solder. Okay, I'm not going to have too hot of a flame right here because that bead wire is so delicate. So I'm going to get this flux already with flux. Get the wire solder where I want it. I am very nervous about this. Let me not talk a lot. I'm going to start to heat it from underneath. I don't know if I'm on camera the entire time, but I'm on camera the entire time, maybe. I'm going to come from underneath. I'm watching for the metal to come up to the correct temperature. How I know that is the color of the flux. Not quite there, almost. Very nerve-wracking. I've got some solder down. Some of the metal's getting a little hot. Not too happy about that, but that's where it'll be cut off. So. Well, I didn't want the solder to get right there. I don't know if the solder flowed all the way around. I'm just going to go around and flow some of those solder pieces. Make sure I didn't melt anything. Okay, I am going to call that good. That's very nerve-wracking. I don't even know if I did it. There's stuff on there. Let's get some water. There we go. Let's check out the bead wire. Okay, it looks like it's got soldered down. Well, that wasn't too bad. Okay, yeah, so it looks like it got soldered down. It looks like it got soldered down using the stick soldering method. I'm going to throw this in the pickle. We'll get this cut out and then soldered to the cuff, the bracelet part. And then we are all... Okay, I've got my piece out of the pickle. I did just draw around the perimeter with a thin Sharpie marker just so I can see the contrast between the outside or the dark line and the metal. Sometimes that can be hard for my eyes to see. little finger guards just to help hold it. I don't want to file into the beaded wire, so I'm going to be holding, instead of holding my file at a 90-degree angle to the back plate, I'm going to have it angled away from it slightly. So that I'm reducing the risk of hitting the beaded wire. Okay, I'm really happy with how this is looking. It looks so cute. What a cute little setting. Beads look pretty good. I think I did hit one of the beads right over here or something, but they are so tiny. Nobody is going to be getting close enough to me to know that I filed a tiny bit of one of the beads. Okay, before I solder on the bezel to the cuff, I am just going to do a little bit of polishing and getting this nice and clean on the jewel tool. This is a radial disc brush. Just putting on a mask, turning on the vacuum. Okay, so like I said, I had already created the cuff. Now I need to find the centers, and I am going to file a little flat spot here. Just, let me see if I can get this, just so that I can have more contact with the back plate. Okay, so it should, if I file between those marks, file it flat, it will sit right on there and it will be very, very nice. I'm going to use one of my sanding rolls to achieve that job. You know, some people like to use files. I sometimes just feel that I have more control with a flex shaft. Some people don't feel that way, and that is a-okay. All right. So I am just going to hold it and start to file a little flat spot, or sand a little flat spot here. I think I will need to do it a little bit more. I have this set up in a third hand, and I'm going to work on getting it soldered down. I've got some solder chips right here on my charcoal block. I will be melting these into little balls, or making them into little balls, and then putting them on the back plate right up against the bangle or the cuff wire, and we'll get it to flow. All right, grab my flux bowl, grab these tiny pieces of solder, and right up against those flux bowl. Here, little pieces of solder. Apologies if I go off camera or my head gets in the way. Where'd you go, little piece of solder? There you are. Come on. Okay. All the solder in place. Get my pick handy just in case I need to move any of the solder back into position. Try to make sure I'm focusing on the back plate because I don't really want the solder to go up onto the cuff. Those flowed. Try to get those to flow. There we go. Make sure all the solder got pulled through. All right, I have pulled my piece out of the pickle. I have done the cleaning up with my jewel tool and my flex shaft. So now I'm going to put this in some liver of sulfur, put this in the tumbler for a bit, and then it will be ready to set that beautiful turquoise. So I will see you in just a moment to set the stone. Okay, I am back and I've just pulled the cuff out of the tumbler and I'm about to set the stone. I wanted to show you that today I am going to be putting some wire underneath the stone in order to lift it to the correct height for the height of my bezel. People can use all sorts of things and do use all sorts of things underneath the stone. And I have some wire in my stash that is silver filled wire. And I'm not using it for my silversmithing. I used it way long time ago when I first got into jewelry making. And it's just been sitting in my stash. And I thought, why don't I use it to lift the stone? And so I've just made a couple little coils that the stone will sit on top of, and that should raise the stone to the correct height for this bezel. So I'm going to get the cuff in my vise, and then we're going to set the stone. If that is the correct, yeah, that was right. That is the correct, perfect height. It is a little flexible in here just because of the vise, the ball vise. I could probably move over to my other workbench and set it over there in my big vise, but we are going to go with this one today. And I'm going to try this setting tool that I've had. See how I like that? I'm kind of trying to brace it. Sorry if my hand is in the way. So just going around and pushing it into the bezel. I like why I don't typically like flat. Rounded. Just cut myself again in the same spot. Thanks. You know, I'm going to use my pusher tool to push the bezel. Not having some good luck today. All right, the stone has been set and this cuff is all finished. I love the satin finish to the metal. That is always my favorite. That's always my favorite finish. Really beautiful piece of turquoise mountain turquoise. Let's see how it looks on. So cute. Trying to get my hand in the camera. Anyway, really happy with the way this very cute stacker cuff turned out. I can't wait to make more of these and have a whole nice stack going up my arm. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing me make this little stacker cuff, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.